Good morning, everybody. Welcome along to the SCW Live Lounge and our presentation regarding how organisational development can be used to really transform complex systems. My name's David Benson. I'm the Organisational Development Programme Manager at SCW.
I'm Katie Bowden, Transformation Director at SCW, looking after organisational development, workforce and comms and engagement. Before David and I start, we did want to say that if you do, it's really feedback, sorry. We want this to be quite participative. In fact, it will be participative because we've put Post-it notes on your seats. But if at any point you want to say something, you feel you want to contribute anything, please just stick your hand up. We don't have to just sit and listen to us. But equally, you're very welcome to if you'd like to. So feel free to join in.
Absolutely, and very much the topic of Dialogic OD lends itself to a discussion, not really a presentation. So as informal and as participative as we can make it, that would be marvellous. So, as each and every one of you know in the room, the population needs are growing and the complexity of the systems that we're working in are increasing. Each and every single person in the NHS now is facing into structural changes, increasing ageing population, mental health crisis and post-pandemic recovery, all of which is creating a huge amount of complexity across our systems. And we know that we're expecting more collaboration across these systems for the future. But how do you collaborate in an environment where there is still high levels of competition for scarce resources, such as staff, for funding? And how do we collaborate when we're bringing together such diverse cultures, ways of working, values, etc.? So very much we're going to be talking this morning about how Dialogic OD can lend itself really effectively to unpicking some of those complex systems, enabling really powerful conversations and solving some of those wicked problems that each and every one of us are facing into. Many of you will have come across the phrase VUCA before, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And I think never before has it been true that the NHS is facing into a VUCA environment. With the emergence of integrated care systems, with the complexity of coming back post-pandemic, we truly are facing into that VUCA world at the moment. And we know as OD practitioners, and probably each and every one of you in the room realise this, actually the only way that you can see your way through those VUCA situations is by creating a climate of trust in which individuals can come together and have really strong, powerful conversations about what some of the solutions for the future could look like. So before we get into Dialogic OD and what it's all about and how it can really enable and transform complex systems, I just want to take a moment for some audience participation. So on your chairs, or at least on the end of your row, you'll find some Post-it notes and pens. If you could grab a Post-it note and a pen, please, that would be marvellous. Or if you have any other writing implement or a pad or anything like that, that would be marvellous as well.
I might have seen it. Thank you.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is just take a minute, and describe what you see on the screen. So jot down how you would typically describe that picture that you see before you, and I'll give you a moment to do that. Right, I can see from the pace at which Post-it notes are being put down again that everybody seems to have jotted down a few thoughts, which is lovely. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to come back to that in a moment, but before we do, I'm going to hand over to Katie, who's going to talk much more about Dialogic OD and how it can really help to transform complex systems. Katie.
Thank you, David. Many of you may have already undertaken an exercise like that before. It's quite a common way to get people to think differently. The purpose of the exercise is to really drill down the point that everybody sees the world in a different way. So we all have different perceptions and different perspectives. And in fact, we all have different stories and different narratives. We all have different stories and narratives about everything that we're doing and everything that we get involved in and participate in. We also have different stories and narratives about our organisation. So you could argue that your organisation isn't actually real. It isn't your hospital building or your operating plan. It certainly isn't your bottom line. But it is, in fact, the story and the narrative that people tell inside their heads, that they write themselves, that they construct themselves, and we don't actually have any direct control over it. So when it comes to managing complex problems, we have a choice. We can either take the blue pill and stay as we are in the here and now, or we can take the red pill and be brave and really hear the complexity of the different conversations and the different narratives. And I actually have a prize for the person who can tell me which film reference that's from. That lady, the lady in the back, she said it first for sure. You get dairy milk. So what is Dialogic OD? Do you mind clicking? So Dialogic OD suggests that your organisation isn't what you think it is, but it is in fact about experiences, perceptions, and the mindsets of everyone. Yesterday marked the National Estates Facilities Healthcare Awards Day, and it was an opportunity to celebrate estates and facilities. I know from experience with working in such teams that if you asked anybody in that work group their story of their organisation, it would be completely different to every single one of us in this room. And that's valid, and that adds diversity and a context that we need to be listening to and hearing. Language matters. The only way to understand how things are, and therefore start to have conversations about how things could be, is by reaching wide and deep across your organisations and to truly hear the views of many different people as possible. So change comes from changing conversations, and leaders need to be brave in hearing, truly hearing those conversations. We used to say that we could freeze and refreeze change, but we can't do that anymore because it is continuous. But we can punctuate it and we can disrupt it to allow it to grow organically. So this table really sets out the more kind of traditional diagnostic OD approach with the dialogic OD approach that we're talking about today. And in essence, the difference is that we're talking about changing mindsets rather than behaviours. We talk about winning hearts and minds, and that really is what about dialogic OD is. It provides a lens to develop new understanding and fresh ideas and collaborating across wide groups. I quite often use an analogy about being in the opticians where you put those different coloured lenses over. If you really do that truly, you see and hear something completely different. And what that adds is truly quite remarkable. Dialogic OD can actually be considered as providing a container for powerful, honest conversations. And these really help unlock complex problems. It's about embracing generative change rather than being very planned in our approach. And actually, we need to prepare our workforce psychologically for the fact that change is continuous. We often hear about change fatigue, people saying that they can't take any more change. What if that's the future? What if it is about continuous change, but that we just need to be prepared and create an environment where we are able to thrive in that way? I had a colleague who's been working for a huge pharmaceutical conglomerate. She's been working to support their executive team in their development programme. She and I were having a conversation, sharing experiences, and she said something that really struck me. Everybody on that team said to her, "We don't need any more theory, Claire. We don't want more theory. What we need is conversation." And actually that's totally resonated with me about what Dialogic OD is as an approach. This is about a fresh, new approach to transformational change. There isn't one answer. David talked about the VUCA world that we're in. If there was an answer, we'd all be doing it. We'd be sitting here now, would we? We'd know what it is. And that's okay that there isn't one answer. But what we need to be able to support each other with is being comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the challenge that we need to face. So how do we at SCW use Dialogic OD? Well, as OD practitioners and as consultants and change agents, we support in identifying the adaptive challenge. So by being clear about what the complex problem is, we then reframe that complex problem into something that is possible. We engage our diverse stakeholders, being respectful of the diversity of conversation and the dialogue, and we shape questions to bring solutions to life and support self-organising probes and discovery. Change can come from anywhere, and we need to be able to truly hear that. People sometimes say, well, don't ask that question because you'll open the floodgates. Let the gates flood. You've got to let these things come out. It might not be comfortable. We might not hear what we want to hear. But all those true stories that we hear of people's different realities need to be contained somewhere and understood. And critically, we support creating a psychologically safe environment and culture to allow for success and failures. One of the key elements and characteristics about Dialogic OD is that true ability to have trial and error. And I know we talk about it, we talk about a learning culture, and we talk about a psychologically safe culture, but are we truly embedding that in how we lead that as leaders? The leadership style that suits Dialogic OD most is adaptive leadership. And the conditions of adaptive leadership enable us to create an environment where people can truly thrive in this VUCA world. So typically, adaptive leaders really, truly actively listen. They really want to hear and are prepared to really hear the stories and narratives of their people. They're brave in having the conversations. You know, it does take something to really, truly engage with people and listen to what they're saying and to really hear the uncomfortable truth. And they're flexible, which means that they are able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And they allow change to be emergent and come from anywhere. They create an environment that really embraces diverse views. And they have an ability to understand that there are multiple truths. There is no one truth, there's no one answer, but there is a multitude of multiple different varieties and variations of those things. So by doing these things, Dialogic OD enables everyday conversations to truly transform complex systems.
Thank you, Katie. So going back to the exercise that I set at the start of the session, just take a moment and turn to the person either next to you or behind you or near you and just have a conversation about how you viewed that picture. How did you describe it? What were the words that you used? Marvellous. I can see that there's lots of good conversations going on in the room at the moment. So just out of interest and a show of hands, how many of you in the room used exactly the same words and described that picture in exactly the same way?
David and I did joke about how funny would it be if someone put their hand up.
Yeah, I'm very pleased about the fact that nobody's put their hand up. So what if that was your organisational strategy? What if that was your organisation's vision and values? What if that was your ED&I framework? What if that was an HR policy? And each and every one of you in the room is seeing it in a subtle and different manner. You've got a different perspective, you've got a different perception, you've got a different understanding of what it means. The absolute critical point of Dialogic OD is that it helps to unlock those differences. It helps to unlock the ways in which people view the world. There's that very cliched quote about, we do not see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And I think that is never so more true than with Dialogic OD. Because it's only through having those deep, brave conversations can we start to unlock solutions that are really appropriate for some of the wicked challenges that we're facing into across the NHS at the moment. So how do we work as SCW? What do we do to support those brave conversations? Well, firstly, we work with partners, with customers, with clients to create space, to create those psychologically safe environments in which individuals from across the emerging systems can come together and have really brave conversations. We've been doing some work with some of the emerging systems already in trying to create environments in which individuals and stakeholders and partners from across the integrated care system can come together and start to have those difficult conversations about what it means to work in collaboration rather than working in competition. And more what we're finding is it's the relationships, it's the trust, it's the respect between these individuals which is oh so important in creating the right environment to enable us to have those really difficult conversations. And actually some of the workshops that we've been running take 2-3 months worth of time and effort to embed and get going to get to that point where individuals can come together and have those more difficult conversations. So it takes time, it takes effort to really authentically listen, to bring together the right people in the room and to create and establish that environment of trust that enables these really brave conversations to take place. We also provide coaching for leaders, for managers, for everyone. as Katie said, adaptive leadership is going to be oh so important for the future, and actually helping individuals to navigate the complex world, helping individuals to navigate the VUCA environment is absolutely critical. And one of the benefits of SCW is that we really do provide an objective approach that enables leaders to come to us, to work with us, and for us to coach them through some of these wicked challenges that they're facing into. As it says there, we help to reshape some of the challenges that are being faced into so that individuals from across a population can really understand it better. So we help to reframe some of those wicked challenges to make them easy to understand so that we can begin to have those brave conversations across the ICSs, across those partner networks to create those solutions. And finally, it says evaluation there. I'd love to have evaluation running through all of this. We know as OD professionals that really good evaluation of our programs and of our initiatives is a bit like the Holy Grail. As OD professionals, we're constantly seeking the reassurance that what we're doing is meaningful and effective. And so at SCW, we're developing a number of evaluation frameworks that enables us to really understand the impact that we're having with the programs that we implement, and really starting to support leaders from across organisations to recognise the importance of these brave conversations. And finally, our values, absolutely critical to the way that SCW operate. These are built into our DNA and baked into every single program that we implement across any organisation, across any one of our customers. Everything we do has a patient-first approach. We make sure that we really understand the impact on our patients, and we can recognise and evaluate how our programs and how our initiatives will have a positive effect on them. And as it says there, aspirational, collaborative, insightful and respectful. Critical values when taking a Dialogic OD approach. If you're going to be creating a psychologically safe environment for participants, for stakeholders, for leaders, you need to be able to demonstrate that you're working in a collaborative way, in a respectful way, and that we're lending insight to all of the work that we're doing across organisations. So, over the course of the last 28 minutes or so, you've heard a little bit about Dialogic OD and how it can really help to unpick some of these really thorny and wicked challenges that are occurring at the moment, and just how important those deep and meaningful conversations are amongst leaders, amongst all people in an organisation, to help surface some of those solutions that are going to be really effective for some of the challenges that we're going to be facing into in the future. So I think that's about it from Katie and me, but in a true Dialogic OD style, what questions have you got? What insight can we bring? What thoughts are you having? We've got a gentleman over here. Let me pass you the mic.
Cheers. My question is, so you talked about this in terms of, as I've come in a little bit later, so product development, solutionization, that type of thing, I get that. How do you see this working in an integrated way for an internal workforce? What's the key there?
Do you mean internally within organisations?
Yes, yeah.
For us, it's about the clarity of communication and engagement. So I spoke a bit about the estates and facilities bit. Were you there for that part of it? A really critical part of transforming a complex system, I think, is about creating a culture in your organisation where people feel safe to fail and truly, authentically mean that, but also being really, really clear about the dialogue and the story that you're telling as an organisation. So there's something about being really clear, whether that's top down or spread across the organisation, about what our true story is, whilst also truly, authentically listening to the fact that everybody's got a different version of it. So David did say about how everybody sees an HR policy in a particular way, everybody could see an operating plan in a different way, and we all see things with a different lens. By understanding that and being able to actually be brave enough to have the conversations, you can help shape and form that as an organisation so that we can start to really unpick what the complex problems are. Dialogic OD isn't just about dealing with complex problems, it's also about employee well-being and motivation, etc. But in this context, it's an approach which enables us to really consider how we deal with complexity, because there isn't one way to do things. So if we had the answer, we'd be doing it, and but we know that everybody in this room comes with a different lens, a different experience. But how do we kind of have that container to hear that, to really explore that, and to have that diversity of views brought together?
And I'd certainly add to that as well, it's about leaders being brave enough to signal to the population that they're willing to have these brave conversations. Just creating space and time for individuals to come together and face into some of these challenges is really important. And often time isn't something that's a luxury in the NHS, but actually leaders signalling that this is important enough to spend time on, to gather individuals across an organisation, is absolutely critical.
As we move into the ICS mergers as well, we've got different organisations coming together with their own stories and their own cultures, and that's glorious and wonderful, and all those things bring things together. But actually what that means for the workforce is that they will be trying to attach themselves to a particular narrative. So we need to be really clear about what that story is as our systems merge together, and to be comfortable about the fact that it might be uncomfortable and that it may change again, and being prepared for that change so that we kind of continue to have the energy and the resilience to be able to do that.
Any other questions from the audience at all? No, well, Katie and I will be at the back of the room, so please do come and have a chat to us if you want to find out a little bit more about Dialogic OD and how it can help you. But thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.